Here we go. We got another new shoe, another new brand. This is the VJ Ultra 2. Finn, have you ever run in a VJ shoe before?
Until this moment, or at least until these past few months, no. And I got to give them a shout out because I do believe in the power of influencer marketing. Came about because I had Lindsay Webster and Ryan Atkins on the podcast about 3 or 4 months ago. They are super successful, super recognizable OCR athletes. And I think what's interesting about this brand is they're now trying to make a foray into the trail and ultra world, which is part of the reason why we're here talking about the shoe. And it's always interesting to see brands make a jump from one sport to another. And here we are.
Yeah, I think the shoe brand VJ first came on my radar in, I think it was just last year's Broken Arrow Sky Race. I saw a handful of athletes across the distances wearing this logo, and I was like, I've never seen this before. So yeah, a little research, and turns out VJ, they're a Finnish company, and they've actually been around for over 40 years, but they did not get into the North American market until the beginning of 2019. So that is why they might not be on a lot of radars for people in North America, because they are very new. Little disclaimer, these shoes were provided to us by VJ, but we are under no financial obligation to say whether we like or dislike a product. We want to keep these reviews authentic and beneficial for you. So all these opinions are our own. The VJ Ultra 2. Yeah. So this is their highest cushion, thickest, highest stack height shoe that was designed more for just pure trail running. Finn, kind of like you had said, this company has made a huge splash in the obstacle course racing side of the world. And a lot of that is touted on their claims of very precise fit and the best grip on earth. Those were their words, not mine. But I may or may not disagree with them. We'll get on to that in a bit. Few stats on this VJ Ultra 2. It is $170. My pair in a size 10. More on the sizing in a little bit. I just want to say that out there so we don't forget, which I doubt we will. 10.3 ounces in my size 10. So on the lighter side, especially for like all that you get. 27 millimeter stack in the forefoot, 33 in the heel. So that makes for a 6 millimeter drop, kind of puts it squarely in that medium drop range. I feel like anything from 4 to 6, a lot of people can just grab and use. We got some interesting materials. So, this is pulled off of the VJ website. So this upper is a heavily reinforced mesh material with DuPont brand Kevlar and nylon woven into the mesh for added structure, durability. There is some additional, welded plastic overlay around, some of the high wear points of the shoe, as well as this FitLock arch strap that is stitched just right onto the medial side of the arch. And that's for added structure and stability within the upper of the shoe. Pretty beefy toe bumper as well. We've got a pretty classic tongue. It's just sewn in at the bottom. No extra fancy stuff going on there. It's pretty thin. Couple little loops sewn in there so that way it doesn't move around, but that's pretty much it for the tongue. The midsole is just one single density of their own proprietary EVA blend. So it's just a pretty classic EVA foam. They say there's a rock plate in the forefoot, and I believe them because I didn't really feel much for rocks, but I don't see anything. So it must be embedded somewhere in the middle of the shoe. And then the outsole is definitely where most of VJ's marketing is in terms of like what they're promoting with the shoes. So this is 100% butyl rubber, which it's very hard and it is very grippy. Like when you walk across like hardwood floor, you can almost hear it like sticking to the ground. Like it's very sticky rubber and it's actually not soft. So from a durability standpoint, pretty good. And for as far as like in-house rubber materials go, I think VJ might actually have one of the best. Because a lot of companies make their own rubber and a lot of them do it very poorly. Um, and yeah, I think VJ was right. They make some very grippy shoes. Finn, how much running did you get in with this one?
I got in 47 miles to be exact, and we just finished doing our review on the Topo Pursuit, and I mentioned them because I trained in these VJs in a similar environment. I actually took them out to UTMB, so Chamonix, France, and that area of the Alps back in August of 2022. Had a chance to test their marketing slogan that it has the best grip on earth. And we know that a lot of races at UTMB are won and lost on the many steep technical descents there. And so I felt like it was just an excellent environment to put all that to the test. How about you?
I got in 75 miles in the shoe. Like for the last couple weeks of my javelina training, I almost just alternated runs between the Topo Pursuit and this VJ Ultra 2. And then my last few runs that I've done is I've tried to get going post race. I've actually been wearing the VJ for reasons that I'm sure they'd never intended someone to be running in the shoe for. More on that in a bit. But yeah, I got in 75 miles and, it was mostly dry single track. I did try like purposely to take it on like some more technical trails because I wanted to see what the rock protection was like. I wanted to see what the lockdown was like on much steeper terrain. And the longest run I did in the shoe was about 2 hours. In terms of the fit, this is a unique one in terms of the fit. Like first and foremost, it runs small, like no doubt at all. It runs small. Finn, what size did you get for yours?
I wore a 12.
How close were your toes to the front of the shoe?
So it actually felt, I had an opposite experience. It felt like it ran big for me.
Okay, we're going to have to cut all that. Even the VJ dude said the shoe ran small.
It ran big for me.
How is that even possible? Are you sure you don't have like a UK 12 and a US 13? Like we need to check that. You do tongue check on the medial side.
Sorry, I have a US 12.5.
I knew it. We're keeping this in the show.
And you know what? Keep my blunder too, because I need to own up to my mistakes. I almost misrepresented this shoe.
We're not cutting out a single thing. I knew it. Okay. So I went with my normal size, which is a US 10, and that was against the recommendation from our contact at VJ to go a half size up because my 10 that I normally wear is a hair on the big side. So I really wanted to see how small this shoe is. And when I put it on, I would say it's somewhere probably between a half to 3/4 of a size short. And whether you go up a half size or a full size, I think is largely going to depend on the amount of space you desire right at the very front of the toe box. Because I could tell, like with my toes being right up to the front, longer runs, with my pinky toes and my big toe touching the very edge of the toe box, it would start to feel a little crammed. For the sake of just daily training and runs under 2 hours was good enough, could totally do it. I couldn't wear a thick sock, but it was doable. But if I were to get these again, I would definitely go up to a 10.5, which I think would fix some of the width issues. I initially thought like, whoa, this shoe is like super tight, like very narrow, minimal, but kind of thinking now, if I went a half size up, it would actually be wider than what I feel like some of its competitor shoes are, like maybe the Solomon, like the S-Lab, like Soft Ground, or even like the Speed Cross, some of La Sportiva's more technical mountain running shoes. Those are all very narrow lasted shoes. And while I feel like the VJ also still fits kind of in that narrower lasted category, they did add a little bit more volume to the toe box. Like this toe box has more volume to it than most of the other Solomon or La Sportiva shoes that I've run in that I feel like would compete against this shoe. Finn, what did you think about the fit of this one?
Yeah, I had a couple issues with it. One thing I was surprised about, because it kind of looks just at a glance like a sleeker shoe, or I guess they try to organize the shoes that it has like a sleeker look, but I did feel like I had enough room in the toe box in the same way I felt like I had room in the Topo and the Ultra Mount Blanc that we reviewed, which markets itself as like a wider toe box. So that was surprising to me and enjoyable. One thing, and I think this was just because of sort of the sizing issues, I was noticing a lot of this creasing to happen, right? Sort of at the bottom of the lacing structure in the forefoot. And this, whatever the material they use here, I mean, this happens in a lot of shoes I wear without issue, but in this particular case, it was incredibly abrasive. And I was getting a lot of hot spots and blistering and just general discomfort, even like 2, 3, 4 miles into a run. And I mean, you can see from this angle, especially like really cutting into like the pinky toe area and the big toe area of my foot. Painful experience.
Yeah. It's a pretty starchy upper, kind of like in the Topo review where you were like, yeah, the upper just kind of moved everywhere around my foot, which is good and bad in some cases. This shoe, I probably couldn't have been more opposite, where it's like the structure of this shoe is going to be how it's going to be, and your foot's either going to agree with it or not. Like it does. This shoe changes for nobody. And I felt like I was in an air.
I felt like I was in an air. My foot was in an airplane hangar. It was incredibly cavernous, and there was some bouncing around too. And I felt like I was like hitting into steel frames, like just a very solidly built area for the foot to reside in. Interesting.
Yes. So when you were running in this shoe, did your foot move around in the shoe, or like were you able to lock your foot down very well?
Not the best lock either. No.
Okay. See, I was able to lock my foot down pretty well, and perhaps that is because I wore it on the small side. One thing I did have to do is I had to take the laces and run it through every single one of these loops on the tongue, because the tongue would slide down and fold right at like the base of my forefoot, and that was causing some bruising the first few runs, and I thought it was going to be an immediate deal breaker. But once I relaced the shoe, I actually didn't have any issues with the tongue. Going back to our car analogies, I kind of felt like this is kind of slotting itself into that Formula One type category where it is all performance with the expense of comfort, and it's going to do its job. And it might not be the most luxurious shoe or the most luxurious ride, but like you're going to be in it and you're going to be able to take it on some pretty crazy things as long as it doesn't become too uncomfortable, which is partly why I did have to limit this shoe to runs of about 2 hours. I ran into a similar issue with this shoe as I did with the Adidas Agravic Flow 2, where the ankle collar was a little bit too high and very stiff. So while it did lock my foot down incredibly well, like once I put this shoe on and tied it up, my foot wasn't moving at all. So I had full confidence on like really any type of terrain. But on more technical terrain where the shoe's moving around, like my bottoms of my ankle bones just started to get a little sore. Which for some like sky races and like shorter stuff, that I would be okay with that if it meant that I was going to have a more precise fit and, basically better control of the shoe when I'm out there. So I think up to a certain point, that's going to be fine, but definitely not like winning anyone over in the pure comfort category. But I don't think that's what this shoe was designed for.
How about the grip? Did it live up to the grip expectations for you?
Yes, I didn't. I wish I could have tried it on more gnarly terrain, like some wet, mossy rocks. Like I'm starting to think, Finn, you're from the East Coast. Could this be a nice East Coast, like technical trail shoe?
I think it could. And there's a reason why I have to imagine like Ryan Atkins and Lindsay Webster, who are based in Sutton, Quebec, which is just north of Vermont, north of the Adirondacks and the White Mountains. This seems like a shoe designed for that experience, which is an incredibly rugged, thankless trail running experience in a lot of respects. So yeah, it could be the case that given that I'm based in Salt Lake City, you're based out in Ashland, and for better or worse, we're spending a lot of our miles on trail running carpet. It's sort of out of context for us.
Yeah, I had an unnecessary amount of grip. So then that just had me thinking like for those who truly do need a lot of grip, this is an option. Like this outsole rubber is fantastic, and I encourage VJ to sell their outsole rubber to other shoe companies. I could see that happening. I think it's that good. And from a durability standpoint, it's great as well because the actual rubber compound is so hard. Like you will get a ton of miles out of it. Going to like the midsole feel, it's a firm shoe. Like it's called the VJ Ultra, but it's still I think it's a pretty firm feeling shoe. Like I guess that kind of leads into the like, what did they design this shoe for? And is it true? I mean, it's called the Ultra. The shoe is meant for ultra marathons in mind. What do you think about that, Finn?
I think there's a case to be made for the 50K distance, which would then provide the most liberal, all-encompassing definition for this shoe. I could never see myself wearing this shoe for a 100-miler or really anything above, let's say, 5 or 6 hours time on feet. I think bread and butter, this shoe is maybe like a 1 to 3 hour time on feet shoe, but I just think it would put so much abuse on my feet that I couldn't justify it in most, if any, ultra running circumstances. How about you?
Yeah, that's like pretty much where I fell with this shoe as well. Like if I happen to sign up for like a very technical 50K that, I know I'm going to need a very high performing shoe and, my feet can get a little jacked up. That's fine. That's where I would take this. But for me, where I would pull this shoe out is, like sky running type distances where, they're shorter than a marathon, ton of up, ton of down, lots of technical, lots of rocks. I think that's where this shoe is going to be great. So I just don't see really myself running an ultra in it. But for those who live in areas where most of their running is ultra technical and you need a shoe that performs the way, performs in a way that keeps you safe, more so than just keeps you comfortable. I think this is actually a great shoe for that.
I wanted to say one more thing, and that is, this is my first experience wearing a VJ shoe, and it's often the case that when I'm exposed to a brand for the first time, Hoka is a great example. I'm not the biggest fan of their earliest model shoes as they try to enter into the trail running market. Like I didn't become a fan of most of Hoka's line, like the Tecton, the Mafate, et cetera, the Carbon X until like 3 or 4 years ago, which was like 6 or 7 years into their reign in our market. Mm-hmm. And I just want to give a shout out to VJ. Like I'm excited to see what they continue to iterate on with this shoe and other models in our space. And it's exciting to see them to be here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the North American side of things, they're still a very young company, and I think they do have a lot of room to grow within this market as they learn, like what is needed in the North American shoe market. And they've got a lot of great pieces, and I'm excited to see what like generation 3 of the shoe is going to look like, or, next generations of some of their other shoes, because like they've got all the right tools. And I think they're like very close to making a shoe that's going to be really fun for a lot of people.